Greetings, fellow Siegers. Hero Siege Season 7 is officially set to launch on June 6th, bringing with it a wave of exciting new content. A brand new seasonal feature, powerful in-game bosses, an all-new class, reworked and newly added items, expanded blood pack support, hundreds of balance changes across all classes, and massive performance, anti-cheat, and server stability upgrades. And that's just the beginning. Be sure you mark your calendars, this season is shaping up to be a fun one. In today's video, I'll be walking you through a complete build guide. We'll cover everything that you need to know from pros and cons, leveling strategies, skill and sub-skill tree progression, attribute allocation, gearing recommendations for budget, mid-game, and end-game setups. I'll also break down optimal mercenary pairings, loot filter tips, and some helpful resources I've created to support you guys on your journey through the season. A full written version of this guide will be available on my website shortly after the video goes live, and as always, timestamps will be available for your convenience. If you're new here, I'm Graxy. I create ARPG-focused content with a strong emphasis on Hero Siege. My channel features build guides, game mechanic breakdowns, how-to tutorials, and content for both new and experienced players. If you enjoy this kind of content, consider subscribing to stay up to date with the latest Hero Siege news and guides. Your support, whether through a like, comment, or small donation, help keeps the channel going strong. Let's dive into it. This guide was created during the closed beta phase of Season 7 and is based on the content and mechanics available at that time. Please note that certain features, balance changes, or other game elements may be updated or modified as the game progresses towards its official release. The information presented here may not fully reflect the final version of the game, and some aspects could be subject to change. While I strive to provide accurate and effective build recommendations, future adjustments by the developers may impact the viability of certain strategies. Always refer to the official patch notes for the latest insights and information. The Cannonball Pirate is a high damage, explosive playstyle in Hero Siege that thrives on chaos and destruction. This build focuses on utilizing the Cannonball skill, which sends waves of cannonballs to explode on mobs. This build offers a smooth leveling process for both beginner and advanced players. In the guide, you're going to find information on build functionality, a step-by-step leveling guide, a full gearing section, and much more. Now let's start with the pros and cons. It is range DPS, and range DPS is safe DPS. We have consistent single target, easy to level starter skill. You get meat shields on Pirate, which is fantastic. They're Parrots. They will soak up damage for you. And you also have Treasure Hunter, which is a skill that lets you dig up corpses of slain monsters that will give you additional magifying and another roll on loot, which is a very sought after skill in Hero Siege. Now, some cons: you are best leveled as a cold caster, which is Anchor Swing, and then you will switch into Cannonball once you have a decent DPS weapon at the bare minimum. It's also kind of hard to cap resistances on a two-hander build. You have no built-in movement skill or passive, so you're not going to be able to traverse as fast as some of the other builds that have like teleport. Or even just like a basic mobility skill. You are just base movement, so you want to stack as much movement speed and get movement speed procs on the character. That will help a ton with your clear. And you have no direct damage auras. You don't have an aura that you'll turn on, or just really even a skill like a passive that gives you increased damage. So moving on to our skill trees, here's how we're going to level this build. You can choose to level the fire tree if you want, but I really recommend that you go the Anchor Swing Cold Pirate. It is much smoother. You're going to hit level 24 and you will fly all the way to level 100. You'll be able to farm at level 100 in early hell quite easily with Anchor Swing, because Anchor Swing also did get a little bit of a buff. This is going to help you a ton early on while you are getting the gear to transition into Cannonball, which does again require at least a good weapon and maybe some crit damage to make it start to like really pop off. And it pops off very quick. It's a very fast ramping skill. Fantastic. So here's what I recommend. At level 1 through 7, you are going to put all of your points into Freezing Chain Shot. At level 8, you will put 1 point into Parrot. This is just going to give you 1 Parrot to help you maybe tank your target, so it'll ignore you and attack that for a second. And then you also dump more points into Freezing Chain Shot. You can also put points into Frozen Lead. This is going to give you damage on Freezing Chain Shot without increasing its mana cost, which is really nice. At level 16, we're going to continue along with that theme. We're going to put points into both Torrent and Frozen Lead. And then if you want, you can put additional points into Freezing Chain Shot. It's really about balancing your points between this note here, which is a more damage multiplier, and a Synergy, which is an increased damage multiplier. And doing that in order to beef up the base damage of your Freezing Chain Shot without making it super expensive. So that's going to be our goal here, and we're just going to be pushing that until we hit level 24. This is going to feel a little bit slow, I ain't gonna lie. Fortunately, you can get to like 3-3 or Act 3, Zone 3 and go through the
Forgotten City, or if you want to go through the Sand Cave in 3-2, or even if you really had to, you could stay in Act 2 and go to the Glacial Trail dungeon. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but you could go through that zone a couple of times and hit level 24, and then you will coast on freezing or on Anchor Swing. So again, at level 24, we are going to switch into Anchor Swing. We'll put 1 point into Land Ahoy once we hit level 30. This is going to be a really good way to debuff enemies, as well as it's just really good single target. And then the rest of your points you'll just dump into Frozen Lead once you've maxed Anchor Swing. What's nice about Anchor Swing is you can put 20 points into it. It's not a cooldown based skill, but it's something that you can hit it one time and kind of walk, let your mana regen, get some kills for the sustain. It's kind of like a vortexy skill. You can spam it, which will give you a ton of different anchors going around you, but generally you're just going to hit it once or twice and then move and kill a few things, hit it once or twice. Very nice. Now at level 40, we gain access to our first augment, and this is what's really going to make Anchor Swing just hit a ton. It's not going to change too much in terms of our clear. It's going to really help with bossing. Just really nice. Very, very smooth once you hit level 40. And again, you're just going to continue putting points into Anchor Swing if you don't have it maxed. And then from there, you'll just max out your synergies. So like Frozen Lead. And same for level 70, continue maxing your synergies like Frozen Lead, Set Sail, and it looks like we're working on Freezing Chain Shot right now. You can also put 1 point into Regimas at this point. This is kind of up to you. If you have some plus skills, right, this will give your Parrots like a little bit more life. Because at this point, we also have the Augment for Parrots, which is going to give us a ton of additional Parrots just from the base skill. And then you'll be able to cast them all at one time, which will really, really help. Now, once we hit level 100, here's our final Anchor Swing tree. Be sure that you put 1 point of the Parrots into Regimas, because you're going to have a lot of plus skills at this point. This will really help them stay alive and give them some juice. And then you're just going to max Anchor Swing, Set Sail, Frozen Lead, and Torrent, and then you'll dump the rest of your points into Torrent and Freezing Chain Shot, and then you have 1 point into your Land Ahoy. That is going to help you with getting burn on enemies, as well as just really good single target for bossing, especially on targets that have much bigger hitboxes, because you're going to get way more of these bombs to hit them. So yeah, once we hit our Cannonball, here's what this skill tree will look like. That you can reference this whenever you are ready to make that transition. We're simply just going to max Cannonball, its synergies. Make sure that you dump 20 points into Kneecap. This is very important. It gives you an absolute ton of crit stuff. Very, very strong. Probably one of the strongest crit buffs in the entire game. Now, for sub-skill trees, if you're not familiar with them, you simply click on this plus sign on the top of skills here in the top right, and that's going to open up a window that will look like this. And this is where you can put points into your skills to give them additional damage or just different features for this skill. For Anchor Swing, here's what our tree is going to look like. This is ultimately going to give us the most amount of hits and knockups. This is just very defensive. It's going to knock things around. For Parrots, we're just going to pump as many Parrots as we can right here. Right, this is going to give us max Parrots. It'll give them a ton of speed so they can maneuver around quicker. It's up to you. You can dump your points up here instead. This is going to allow you to cast all of your Parrots all at once, versus this one here knocks them back, which can be kind of annoying for some people. It really depends on you. Once you're playing Cannonball, it doesn't really matter that much because you have so much range that knocking them back doesn't really do anything, but keeps them away from you. So this is up to you, but it will cost the extra points up here to put points in here. So you'll have to lose something here in order to get up here. So that's up to you. For Cannonball, whenever we do finally switch into that, here's what our tree will look like. It is extremely important to put points into Blasting Balls. This is what's going to give you all of your damage. It is a ton of damage. Do not forget 5 points in Blasting Balls. If you take them out and use a skill and then put them in and use a skill, and you'll be like, huh? So yeah, be sure you're doing that. And then here's the rest of what our sub skill tree will look like. And then we have Explosive Barrel. Honestly, you can do whatever you want here. We get burns on this for free. So whatever you want with Explosive Barrel. When it comes to gearing, this section is designed to give you workable suggestions on what gear to acquire at different stages of the game. You as a player are going to need to look at your current gear and figure out what options make sense for you. It's really up to you to experiment, but I'm going to give you a lot of really good options to help you on your path. So while we are leveling from 1 to 100, I'm not going to be recommending any satanics. There are satanics that you're going to find along the way that you'll be like, yo, this makes sense for me to use. 100% use it. But I cannot guarantee that you're going to drop any specific satanic, and nor am I going to tell you to go farm for one, because it could take you one run, it could take you 150 runs before you finally get that satanic, and it's not going to be worth it in the long run. Especially for this character, because you just absolutely blast once you hit that anchor swing. Now, while we're leveling from 1 to 100, there's going to be some affixes that we're going to look for in different pieces of gear. It's mainly just all skills, cold skill damage, colder magic skill damage percentages, movement speed, faster cast rate, any sort of sustain from life and kill, intelligence, energy. Getting these things around your gear is going to make your leveling experience fantastic. I'm not going to go too crazy in showing that on every single piece of gear. Just generally looking for these stats here anywhere on your gear will make a big difference. A couple of things to note: you can get movement speed on chest pieces and shields, so that can be a good place to find some extra movement speed, as well as your charms are very important. Be sure that you are looking for things like mana on charms or life percent on charms. Any of that stuff is fantastic to get to really help with that early game. Now, there are some rune words that you can pick up pretty early. Things like Sky Song. You can make this in a one-handed sword or a spellblade. You do the same thing with a Sky Song on a shield or Divine Contemplation to help you get some resistances. You've got things like Scholar or even Flesh Ripper. If you really want to get the additional all res, you could go Flesh Ripper. This is also something that will help us later on if you're able to make it early. So either one of these will be fantastic. For chest pieces, we have a lot of different options here. Shadow is going to be the first thing that you can make. You can wear this as early as level 17, but you'll have to make it in a D tier, which seizes a toll in an F rune. This will give you a ton of faster cast rate, movement speed. It's really good chest. Fog is new in season 7, and I just recently discovered this. This thing is insane. You get an absolute dumb amount of all resistances. You get faster hit recovery. You get some cooldown. You get some strength. It's actually really nice to get for just a hell and a fell. If you do get lucky and find an early like pull and rune, you can make Gladstone Goose. This also has an absolute stupid amount of all resistances on it. There's also Mayhem. Mayhem's going to be okay. Like if you get an early rune, you'll get some resistances. This will be better for whenever you are in your Cannonball setup. And then Freljord, super simple to make. You only need a Hell and a Lum. You will get these. You just need to look for a 3-socket chest. This is going to give you a ton of juice for your anchor swing while you're leveling. So I recommend if you go for a Shadow early on, swap into either Fog or Freljord. And then once you are Cannonball, or if you go Cannonball super early, either one of these chests honestly will be fine. For gloves, just any random. Boots, you want to look for quick steps. They're going to be fantastic. They give you an absolute stupid amount of movement speed. You get a ton of attack speed with it, which doesn't help us on anchor swing, but it's going to be great whenever we're Cannonball, and we get life still. Beautiful. For belts, whatever we can find. Rings, whatever we can find. Amulets, whatever we can find. And charms, again, very important to help you with your life and mana, getting resistances, getting flat damage, any of that stuff. Do not forget about your charms. Now, once we hit the early game, we're in budget gear. There is some items that can really help us at this point, but there's really not any best in slot gear. We're really just trying to upgrade what we had from leveling, right? Most of these items could be swapped for really strong mythics. Item decisions are really just going to revolve around how your character feels over direct power upgrades. Some situations, maybe you want to go for more like attack speed. That'll make your build feel way better than going for maybe an additional damage option. So you just really have to kind of feel out your character on certain things. But like I said, there's going to be a lot of options here, and you just kind of have to put together what works for you. Cannonball fortunately has very good damage in a lot of different setups, so you have a little bit of wiggle room here. But the most important part of your setup is your weapon. You have to have a good weapon. I give you some information in the guide on how, erase that, we don't have star levels anymore. I give you some information on how weapons work in the different bases and how you make them the rune words and how those are affected. So you need to have a good weapon. There's a few different options here. Judge, Ravager, both will give a good amount of attack damage. These are just one-handers. Unfortunately, I don't have a way to get them on two-handers, but you'll get more attack damage that way. The RTX is fantastic, as well as the F4 attack rifle is fantastic. The F4 attack rifle, you could use this thing forever. It's a very, very good weapon. And lastly, a big one that's missed out is Wind Stride. This thing is insane. You get skills, you get attack damage, you get attack speed, you get mana leech, you get 75 all res. This isn't a roll. You just get 75 all res, as well as you get some magifying. Absolutely insane bow. I would recommend you go for this. It only requires needing a Vex, which is generally pretty cheap to get, since you don't need it for some of the previous rune words. Very, very fantastic. Now in the written guide, I do have some different example builds showing my damage and the whole setup on AoE, single target with different levels of gear. This will give you an idea of what you can put together in order to try to simulate what I have here in order to get the same results in the live season. For helmets, we're looking for really anything here. Flesh Ripper is so cheap and it offers so much. You'll probably just stick on the Flesh Ripper. But if you want to go something like Judge, Jury, Executioner, this is fantastic because you get up to 50% ignore target defense. Very solid. Legionnaire, only requiring a Zoe, Key, and Drax. I know I say only requiring, but early in the game, high runes aren't a mid-game thing. You get so many high runes in even just L1. You could runic embrace farm yourself into high runes. It's actually quite easy to get high runes. You could sell potions to make money to get high runes to buy. It's honestly, in my opinion, a early game budget item to start getting. So making a Legionnaire day one, I do it all the time, right? This is going to give you a bunch of deadly blow. It'll give you a bunch of skills. It'll give you dual leech. It gives you attack damage. It gives you strength. This is what you want to go for, but any of these options will be fine until you get to that point. For chest pieces, Cocoon of the Berserker, Gladstone Goose, Mayhem, all these are great options. Cocoon of the Berserker is the downgrade to a Fortress, right? Fortress is what you want to get. This only requires a Zoe rune. It's I think the lowest or one of the lowest high runes in the game. Be super cheap to get one. This gives you up to 250 enhanced damage. That's insane, right? 25% deadly blow. You get all resistance. You get tons in here. A fantastic rune word. Try to find a plus skills base, and that's even better. You don't have to. I usually, if I find a Zoe rune, I just make it, right? Because I'm not going to wait around to get 250% enhanced damage. I can find another Zoe rune quite easily or buy one quite easily. So make it fantastic. Gloves, any of these will do, right? I like Siege Breakers because I prefer having the ignore target defense and you get res. Boots, you're probably going to stick on quick steps for quite a while. There's Hermes boots, Arena Master Marchers. You can go these if you want. They're decent, right? But ultimately, you're going to want to get to Crush Fleets. These give you an agility proc. It gives you a ton of movement speed and a ton of attack speed. There's not really a better option here. Get it. They're fantastic. Belts. I personally like Butcher Belt. Gives you skills, gives you a bunch of all resistance. You are playing a crit build, so you could go into Brute's Cord. Right there. You could go into Brute's Cord to get the crit and crit damage. Especially on this character because Kneecap gives you so much crit. This will really help you. For rings, Total Wedding Bands, Elven Graces, Ring of the Co-Raven. Any of this stuff is fantastic. You can even find rings, mythic rings with crit damage, enhanced damage until you can get into a nice Kodo's Wedding Band or an Elven Grace, right? Elven Grace can now roll 2 skills and so can Kodo's Wedding Band. So these are just great. Amulets, Raven's Claw, if that's what you want. But if you find a good, crit damage, enhanced damage, mythic, by all means go that, or any of these other options here. Calyx Fury, All Seeing Eye have some skills on them. And then for charms, charms are very important on crit builds. Very important on crit builds. Look for increased critical strike chance and increased crit damage on your charms. You will not regret it. There's also things that you can get on charms like life percentage that can be great for early game. Same thing for resistances. You can help even out your resistances with charms. Getting some sustain, like a singular charm that has some sort of mana leech on it, can be great for your sustain until you can get items that do that for you. As well as there's a ton of satanic charms that you can get early in the game that I'm going to list here. You don't have to get all of these, but these are things that you could be on the lookout for, right? Crow Ravens, this is a quest satanic. You get 20% movement speed and a bit of res for free. So 20% movement speed, especially on a character that doesn't have any sort of movement skill, this is actually a bigger deal than you might think. So run this. It's nice. You probably have the space anyway. Adventurer Quivers, Raiders Torches. are going to give you attack speed. And you also have Anubis's charms, Beetle of Life. These are going to give you, and Hard as Steel Defender. These are all going to give you a ton of life to make you a tanky girl. Then you also have Witch's Claw skills, a bunch of sustain, spine trophy skills. All of these are fantastic. I've become a big Tall's Death Skull enjoyer. This thing is insane. Up to 450 life and mana in the early game is great. And so is Guvrak's Heart's Charm. People miss out on this. You get up to 60 physical damage. Just so you know, that's pretty damn close to an angelic roll. So I think it's 7 to 11 is a 1 skill. So this is giving you around 8 skills, we'll say. Very, very strong. And going to be very cheap. Now, once we move into the mid game, I do have an entire doc here that explains all about attack damage and how to scale physical attackers. So be sure you check that out. I do have some example builds in here showing different item setups for the Cannonball Pirate. So be sure to check this out to get an idea of where I'm sitting in terms of DPS based on certain gear. And that should hopefully help you decide, what items you might want to pick up, what your first upgrades might be based on what you currently have. I will tell you that Shadow Fury is a really good early option. They're not going to be super cheap early, but they're cheap enough. I picked one up when I played my marksman in season 6. I bought it on day 1. Right? I tried to farm one. I don't know how many times I farmed Reaper and didn't get one, but I ended up just buying mine. Shadow Fury makes it so that you cannot crit, so you will need to stack enhanced damage in as many places as you can. You can see here, I have no enhanced damage charms on this character at all. I'm still hitting pretty damn good. We're basically just having the bow and a few of the budget rune words. So yeah, tons of weapon options as well. You can get a monsoon. This comes from dungeons. That T4 tac rifle, that thing will last forever. Right? I actually showed in here. I'm still using it and doing really, really solid DPS on the tac rifle, but you will need things like Elven Graces and the crit to really kind of scale that up. And Brawlers is doing a lot of work here, and so is getting my Relics. Right? That's a big part of this build is you need to have your Relics as they give you a crazy amount of crit damage early on. You could also go into an AK-47 if you find one of those early. Those are okay. And a Glock 22 did get kind of nerfed. I know it's an unholy weapon, but if you happen to find a Glock 22 or you're able to pick one up for cheap, they still do offer quite a bit of DPS for its nerf. And it has a laser on it, which I really like for being able to aim because I have terrible aim. The nice thing on the Glock is you get movement speed, so you can zoom around a bit quicker. For helmets, Chimera is decent, right? You do get some deadly blow on there. This is going to be good before you get Legionnaire, but ultimately Legionnaire is what you want to get here. You could also go into Nikita's if you would like to get a little bit more deadly blow. This gives you 40%, which is quite a bit, and you also get some ignore target defense. Generally, by this point in the game, you're not really looking for more ignore target defense. You have enough attack rating that you aren't having those issues. But if you feel like you're having some issues, maybe Nikita's might be the better play for you over the Legionnaire, simply just to fix your attack rating issues. And then if for whatever reason you can't find any of this stuff, you can make a Delirium, but you should be probably going to find like a key rune or be able to purchase some of these runes before. I mean, Vex is not too much different than Zoki Drax. Drax being probably the most expensive. Vexes are actually somewhat sought out because people are making divinities. Yeah. So moving on to chest pieces. Executioner's Cocoon is the best chest here. It is an upgrade from Fortress. You can use Fortress for quite a while. Try and find a base for the Fortress so you can get some additional skills. You'll be using this for quite a long time until you can find an extra Cocoon. Its drop place is 3/3. You could also run Heaven's Might. If you're hardcore, Heaven's Might's really good, and so is Azarius's. These give you tons of damage reduction. In the next season, they have also added Tremal Jewels, or have reworked Tremal Jewels to give you additional damage reduction. You can pop those in if you just want to be a tanky girl and feel like you have enough DPS. Isarius has actually become one of my more favorite items for a lot of builds just because of the amount of damage reduction, the all res, and you get sockets and you get skills. And there's a lot of places that you get stunned in the game. So you just get the extra damage on top of it, which becomes a very solid chest. For gloves, you're going to want to get Brawler Fighting Mitts. It's really the best thing that you can get at this point. Alley boxing gloves can be a stepping stone until then. Otherwise, you're just going to be using like crit damage, enhanced damage gloves. Boots, you're still going to be on them crush fleets for quite a while. You're going to use these for farming. Even in the end game, I found that crush fleets are just the best for farming because they offer so much with agility for the pirate until you get into a teleport option. And there's also the new physical rogue boots, right? These come from the Rogue Chaos Tower. They're called Brutal Roamers. At the time, they didn't have a name. These are called Brutal Roamers. They come from Rogue Chaos Towers. It can be farmed in Hell 5, right? From a Codex of Chaos. Insane. These things are absolutely insane. If you're trying to boss, get these. For belts of Skulls can give you a bunch of deadly blow. If you are trying to cap your deadly blow, you do get the extra damage in there and movement speed. Very nice belt. Butcher's belt. Again, you can corrupt these. You can get an additional socket on there, throw some deadly blow in it. That can be a really solid option. If you can farm King Rakul, since now with the new season mechanic, you can farm some of the Colosseum fragments from season mechanic. You might be able to get into Rakul a bit easier, as well as the whole rate of Rakuls is going to be much greater in season 7. So try and go for a Rakul belt. These things are fantastic because of the amount of extra damage and all res that you get on them. And then if you're playing trade or if you have access to Inferno, Girdle of Eternal Whir is great. You get the crit damage, you get attack speed, you get vitality, so much life on them. If you know, Girdles are insane. But I understand they are Inferno, and if you're not in trade, this could be inaccessible for you or unaccessible for you. So Gladiator belt being your next best option, or the other two. For rings, you can go for a Corrupted Elven Grace. This is actually pretty nice. You can, like you see this one here, I slammed physical damage. You can get sockets on them. You can get like more attack speed. You can get more crit damage. So slamming Elven Graces that you find is going to be really helpful. If you happen to find an Azazel's, by all means, go farm yourself an Anubis Soul Gem. Best in slot ring. You won't find anything better. Insane. I understand. Getting one of these early in the game is quite rare and quite expensive, but it is something that you could drop in your Hell Journey. A new ring in Season 7 is Pit Fighters Carnage. These give you enhanced damage, some flat damage, and 20% all resistance, right? And you can pair any of these rings with a Rakul Ritual Band to help mirror it if you're able to farm King Rakul. If not, you could go for maybe 2 Elven Graces. I don't know. These Pit Fighters aren't going to be too expensive, I don't think. Just because they are kind of missing a little bit of the juice, but overall still, a solid ring. Very, very good if you're using the Shadow Fury still. Otherwise, just looking for like a mythic ring with enhanced damage, crit strike, crit damage, any of that stuff will be totally fine. Moving on to amulets, we have Griffin's Claw. It's basically an upgraded Raven's Claw from our budget setup. So you're gonna want to get a Griffin's Claw. You can slam your Raven's Claws. You see this one, I got attack speed. You can get all sorts of things on the Ravenclaw. Try and hit something crazy. If you're still using the Shadow Fury, Eagle's Claw is going to be your best option over Griffin's Claw, as it gives you a ton of enhanced damage and attack speed, deadly blow. Just a very nice amulet for the Shadow Fury combo. And then for charms, we're going to be making sure we upgrade our charms, right? We want to get crit damage, enhanced damage, those sorts of charms. This one's insane. You're not going to get a double roll like this, but finding things with these on them for your charms will make such a big difference to your damage for the Shadow Fury version with enhanced damage, or the crit damage for the crit version, whatever you're running. Now, for Season 7, Tablet of the Awakenings, you can put Umruns in them. They can give you a ton of all resistance. It is a little bit tough to get your resistances capped when you're wearing a two-handed weapon, so this is an option if you would like. If you happen to get a tablet with 4 sockets on there, or 3 sockets or whatever, you can put a bunch of Umruns in it. You're going to have tons of them, so it'll help you with your resistances. Otherwise, I would actually change these. They recently just buffed Moonstone Gems, right? Moonstone gems are going to give you that 7% attack speed, but you also get 7 dex and 7 strength. That can be huge to get a bunch of all attributes and some attack speed for your character. Now, there's a bunch of the arms that we listed in the budget section. I reapplied these here just in case you haven't found some of them. If you, like the Venture Quiver and the Raider's Torch and stuff like that can still be very, very useful even in the mid game. So I did put these here just in case you need a reminder of still some stuff you can get. Now, also in the mid game is Molten Paw. Molten Paw is a claw that you're going to put on your back bar and you'll swap to it to give yourself fire enchant. This is going to give you burns on your front bar. Absolutely crucial to scaling your damage into the end game, right? We can use things like caffeinated coffee container. That's going to give us increased damage to targets that are burning. So super fantastic. Be sure you find a Molten Paw or buy a Molten Paw, put it on your back bar. You will need it. Now, when it comes to min-maxing your character, there's going to be a lot of different setups that you can go. Obviously, with corruptions, things can get kind of crazy. As of right now, I don't really have a list of all the corruptions that you can get. There's still so many that people can slam onto items. So there's still ways that you could push the builds even further. But I'm going to show you some different builds that I've refined during the Season 7 testing that I can confidently vouch for their effectiveness. However, builds are always subject to personal preference, specific encounters, and evolving strategies. There may be a more optimal route for you. It just really depends on your playstyle and the zones and the content that you're tackling. So first, we'll look at the single target. And I've really gone through and just shown what the damage will look like with in-game builds, with certain weapon setups, because the weapon is everything, right? So first we have Solo YOLO. You can see we've got some Inferno items on. We have our Azazels. We're pretty geared out here. Same for Saint Amatiels. We're pretty geared out here. We have all the juice on, and same for the Glock 22. And we took a shield, right, to give us a bit of additional resistances. And then same thing for AoE. However, honestly, when it comes to AoE, you really just want to build towards single target. The way that this skill functions when you're shooting out waves, when they hit enemies, they go up and come down. It's basically like a single target skill that can have AoE on it whenever it comes back down. But it's not something like it hits the target and then explodes. It hits the target, goes up, and comes back down and explodes. It's like a pseudo single target skill. So you really should just focus on your single target. And if you have good single target, you'll have good clip. Now for relics, this is pretty set in stone. Gotta have your twin blades, gotta have your nunchucks, razor blade, commander sword. You will not need butterfly knife. This is gonna be your best relic options. You really don't want to swap them out for anything. Triforce isn't really that good. You should try to cap your reses out a different way. You really want to have these relics to maximize. Yes. For potions, there's a list of all the potions that you will consider for your build. If you get a Molten Paw, when you have burns, you will use caffeinated coffee containers. Not really a better option there. The rest of these are kind of things you could swap in and out, just depending on what you want. I prefer going the attack speed routes, but you could go things like bottle of sake or just, whatever you get. You can increase your XP if you would like to, get some magic find, that sort of thing. All of these are listed in the guide. Chest augments, there's a few different options here. Berserker Rage is going to be your best single target option out of all of these. However, Tempest Strikes and Lethal Tempo are going to be very, very close runner-ups. And the problem here with the Berserker Rage is it does decrease your all resistances. So there's that negative side effect that these two don't have. And the damage difference is almost negligible. You're not even going to notice it whenever you're fighting bosses or farming. So I recommend that you go for Lethal Tempo. I like this one the most as it gives you a lot of upfront attack speed and crit, right? Versus Tempest Strikes. It still does, but it's still, you have to get some keys into it before it really starts to pop off. Versus Lethal Tempo gives you a ton right from the first key. And if you're playing hardcore, you can get a cheat death on your augments, right? So when you lose 35% of your maximum life, become immune to all damage healing. Well, it's not a cheat death, but you know what I mean. It makes you have a chance to not die. Alrighty, let's talk about mercenaries. Currently in Season 7, mercenaries generally only have one purpose. They're just magic find warbots. Mercenaries magic find is applied to your on kill magic find. So if you were to take a magic find item and throw it on your mercenary, and open up your character screen, you'll see under the Magifying section that that number didn't go up. But if you select Mercenary and then look at that Magifying value, it did go up. That value is applied to kills that you get on your character. Even though it doesn't show in the actual character section, this is just to show you the difference between the Magifying that you have on your actual character and the Magifying that you have on your Mercenary. So you want to be stacking as much Magifying as you can possibly get on this Mercenary. I cannot stress this enough how important this is. People will come into my stream, they'll message me on Discord, they'll ask in Discord chat, just everywhere. Hey bro, I'm having a hard time finding items, so what do you suggest? And I'll ask them, yo, what's your Mercenary look like? And they will have either no items, just no Mercenary at all. Now in Hero Siege, there are 3 mercs, Act 1, Act 3, and Act 6. We do not use the Act 6 merc most of the time. It just doesn't offer enough utility. You get some Arcane Break on it, and it can randomly give you a shield, which is cool. But it just doesn't offer the same utility of the Act 1 and the Act 3 mercs do. So Act 1 merc can generally get the most Magifying as it's a sword and board class. So you have just more socket availability to put more Magifying in, as well as they have good supporting items for Magifying in those slots. But they're going to have a lower level of fanaticism if you are trying to go for that, if you're aiming to go for fanaticism on your character, if attack speed applies to you. The Act 3 merc can use bows. So this is going to leave us in a situation where we have a little bit less sockets, and there's not really a whole lot of bows in the game that provide Magifying. And again, we are going to be most likely using the Fanaticism bow just to get as much attack speed for our character as we can. The other nice thing about the Act 3 Mercenary is you can get a proc from her that'll give you 100% attack speed. This is really, really nice whenever you're maybe fighting a boss. 100% attack speed is no joke. And if you're a caster character, just go the Act 1 merc. Here's a list of some different weapons for your Mercenary. These are all just going to depend on whether you're taking the Act 1 or the Act 3 Mercenary. Again, Act 3 Mercenary cannot wear maces. It's a bow character, so the Sacred Whip, the Ceremonial Dagger, and the Death Smear, you'll have to use those on the Act 1 Mercenary. But you can use the Valkyrie. That's a really nice bow with fanaticism on it. Otherwise, just honestly throw any bow that you can because the Mercenary doesn't do damage anyway. And then for the Act 1 merc, we also have Aurora's Might. This can give us Lunar Aura. This is a ton of resistances. Very nice to have early on to tap those resistances. Otherwise, just pick any of these options. Death Smear is probably going to be the most expensive. Throw as many Istrunes in there as you can. This will give you a ton of early Magifying. Same thing for chests. These are just different levels of Magifying. So Uppies, Mystic Allure, Heaven's Might, Empires, Military Plate. All these have Magifying on them. Heaven's Might technically doesn't, but it does have 6 sockets. You could throw 6 this in here if you wanted to. As well as you can see that you get a ton of physical damage and magical damage reduction on the Heaven's Might. Very, very nice chest. And then I did list out a couple of tankier chests like Leviathan's Carcass and Nazarius's. These offer a ton of damage reduction. You can see Leviathan's 1,000 life and 23% life increase. 6 sockets, you could throw a bunch of Isrune in there. Same thing for Azarius, you get damage reduction, you get the all res. The very tanky chest pieces that you could throw on your Mercenary to try to get him to survive some of those hits in Inferno and even some of the Ubers in Hell 5. Same thing applies to helmets. Here's some different levels of Magifying helmets. You also get physical and magical damage reduction and up to 30% all res on a Harley Quinn. Very nice helmet for your Mercenary. And lastly, the offhands. Once again, just different levels of Magifying. Leprechaun's Greet is an SS tier. It's going to be the most expensive, the most rare. However, you can't find a Novice Tower. This thing's insane for just being an S tier. You have a increased Magifying roll. You have an increased Magifying based on level. You also have up to 4 sockets to put Is in it. That is a ton of Magifying for an S tier. Again, socket any of these with a bunch of Is runes. Is are honestly quite common, so it's not going to hurt you to pick up some of these items early and then swap into different ones later on. Because our goal is to get Magifying on our Mercenary as quick as we can. After hitting level 100, hero levels in Hero Siege can offer some significant power boosts, but which nodes do you take first? Knowing which nodes to prioritize can make a big difference. There are several effective strategies for optimizing your hero level tree, depending on your character's current progression and gear. This section includes a detailed written guide outlining popular approaches used by the community. If you prefer a visual walkthrough, I do have a YouTube video available with full timestamps. And just to give you a quick scroll through of kind of what that written guide looks like, we go through all the different setups that are available, whether you're an attacker or a caster, and what that would look like if you tried to prioritize certain things and why you might prioritize certain nodes over others. After level 100, glyphs can be socketed into your hero level tree and offer additional utility to enhance your gameplay. Currently, glyphs do not provide direct player power, making their selection entirely preference-based, depending on the content that you wish to engage with. I do have a full YouTube video that describes how glyphs work, so you can get a bit more information if you're not sure what glyphs look like, how to level them up. If you scroll down on this guide, you will find additional information. This will show you every glyph at their level 0, 6, and 8 value, as well as it'll tell you how much it increases by per allocated attribute in its range, its current attribute type, and a description. Alrighty, let's talk loot filters and more specifically league start filters. Now, I'm gonna be pretty blunt about this because I want to make sure that I get my point across so that it's clear. I cannot make loot filters before Season 7's patch actually hits the game. I can't do it in Season 7 beta. I can't do it in the Season 6 client. There is no way that myself or anybody can get you a filter before the season starts for the most part. Now, I did make a video in Season 6 that talks about the loot filter, highlight filters for any class in the game for starters. There is technically a way to set it up before the season starts because the patch actually hits about an hour before the game goes live. So if there's single player, you can jump into single player on the new season and you can quickly make a filter and put those on a notepad, whatever you need to do, and then just import them whenever the season actually starts. So I do have a full video explaining how all of that works and what you will need to do. So if you're not sure how that works, be sure you check out that video. And then of course I do have the full written guide that explains every single archetype and what I put on each of those archetypes so that you can kind of practice. You can jump into Season 6, pretend that it's, league start day, make your filter really fast. You can get familiar with where everything is at. And it's honestly quite easy. Now, if you're a newer player, you're just not really sure how the loot filters work. Loot filters in Hero Siege are not Path of Exile filters, right? They're not going to hide 95% of the items on the ground. You're not going to start seeing that until you get later into the game. So you are going to still see quite a bit of items when you first start the game, and it's going to feel like the loot filter is not working, but it is. As well as the highlight filter is the main part of the loot filter. The highlight part is actually highlighting affixes on items that you care about. Right, so whenever you're playing through the game, you'll see this giant beam, and I don't know what color it is. I think it's orange, but it'll be like an orange beam and an orange highlighted item. You'll be like, oh, that's highlighted. I should probably pick that up. Yes, it's because your highlight filter is highlighting that item. So the highlight filter is very, very important. The loot side of it, not as big of a deal. If you don't want to do all of that for your starter filter, there are in-game presets that you can use for both the filter and the highlight section. So you're simply just going to click Escape, Options, Gameplay, and Loot Filter. This is going to make your screen look like this right here. On the right side, you can see all the highlight presets and the different archetypes, like if you're playing a physical attacker, or you're playing a cold caster, or an arcane caster, or a life stacker, or any of that stuff. All of that will be in here. You can just click on it and go, right? Same thing for the loot side of it on the left. If you're in normal difficulty at the very start of the season, you'll be in normal. You just click normal. Once you hit Nightmare, you'll click Nightmare. Once you hit Hell, you'll click Early Hell, right? And you just kind of level with both of these together. And then as you play, you're welcome to click on these and go in and, add some different stuff into them if you would like to. And then of course you have in-game filters. I don't have a way to give you an in-game filter until the season actually starts. So once we get the season going, I've played for a couple of days. At that time, I will be able to provide some in-game filters. And our last section is additional resources. This section really walks you through the best strategies for each phase of your journey. If you're a newer player to Hero Siege, be sure that you read through these first few sections to gain a better understanding of Hero Siege mechanics and how things work. And also check this section a couple of times before season starts, as I do plan to add some things to it. First up is our beginner guide. If you're newer to Hero Siege, I have a 2.5-hour video that goes through all of the basics from making a character and installing the game to how Ubers work. Be sure you check that video out. There are a few things that you need to know before you get started, like equipping your companion. Everyone gets one of these for free. Be sure you set up your highlight filter. In the video, I do have a full section on the highlight filter. Configure any controls. Here's currently my settings if you would like to copy what mine looks like. I also suggest that you change your minimap hotkey to tab. This will make your minimap overlay permanent, like D2 or Path of Exile, instead of being something that you have to constantly press. Swap your game to 60 FPS. Even if you have an insane PC, trust me, you're not going to see a difference in your frames, but your performance will be much better. And in order to assign skills, you actually click on the right-click skill, and that will open up a menu to assign your skills. Now, there are no required quests in Hero Siege. I do, however, recommend that you complete your Act 1 normal quests. Those are going to give you a mid rune, a ton of the lower runes, a movement speed charm, and a movement speed potion. These are all really nice to have while you're leveling up, especially for being just Act 1 normal. The same thing will happen in Act 1 Nightmare. You'll get up to a Vex rune as well as a bunch of low runes. And then once you get into Act 1 Hell, you'll get a few mid runes. Same thing for Act 2 Hell, and Act 3 Hell is when you will actually get your first high rune. So those are the quests that I recommend that you complete. In Hero Siege, there's additive damage and skill damage. Additive damage is weapon damage. It is damage that you're gaining when your weapon physically hits an enemy or strikes an enemy. This can be from a ranged weapon, a wand, a sword. It doesn't matter. It's your weapon physically striking a monster is additive damage. It is not multiplicative damage. Skill damage, however, is multiplicative damage. It is giving your skill base damage. So to give you an example of this, there's a skill in Hero Siege called Lightning Fury. It's quite common in a lot of ARPGs. You basically take your big hammer, you strike a mob with it, and a bunch of lightning goes out everywhere and chains to a bunch of monsters. If you had both additive lightning damage and lightning skill damage, the additive lightning damage would be affected when your weapon struck the monster, right? And then the skill damage would be affecting the lightning's damage. So there's two different instances of damage that's happening on that strike. Generally speaking, additive damage is great early game, absolutely terrible in the end game because there's no way to scale it. And skill damage is a little less effective early, but becomes very, very potent as you level through the game and as you get into the end game. If you haven't checked out the Season 7 patch notes, that is available in here. There is an official Hero Siege wiki that's launched recently. This has a ton of information. There's a link to that. Now, once you hit level 100, I do have a section here talking about the early game, giving you progression tips and tricks, because a lot of people are expecting, some mapping system or monolith system, or they're expecting to go somewhere and do repeatable content. And Hero Siege doesn't directly work that way. It has a bit of a different system. So this talks about that system a bit in video form, or I do have the full written guide available here. You can read through all of it to get an idea of what we should be doing in order to progress that early game. Be sure you bookmark the Hero Siege helper website. This has an absolute ton of information in it that's very accessible. I use it all the time. If I need to know, I don't know, like what key goes to what dungeon, I'll just pop this up really quickly and it helps you find that. Here is a YouTube video that talks about this entire website, everything that it offers. He has updated it, I think, a couple of times since the last time I reviewed it. There might be a couple of things here and there that are extra, but very, very good website. Be sure you bookmark it.
And that wraps up this build guide. I hope it helps you get the most out of your Hero Siege experience this season. Whether you're pushing through the early levels or tackling the end game, this setup should give you a solid foundation to build from. If you found this guide helpful, please consider leaving a like and sharing it with others in the community. Drop any questions, feedback, or build suggestions in the comments below. I always enjoy hearing from you guys and helping where I can. I'll also be streaming live on Twitch at twitch.tv/Graxy_TV. You can come check me out there, ask me any questions. Would love to see you. Don't forget to check the description for the full written guide and any additional resources mentioned in the video. And if you'd like to support the channel, even a small donation goes a long way in helping me continue creating quality Hero Siege content. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications so you don't miss any future guides, updates, or seasonal news. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy sieging.